I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic which stands
one nation under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the board, I welcome everyone here tonight. Think the mic working?
Yeah.
Just some brief comments on this part. The part of the meeting was set up just for dialogue back and forth between the board in a give and take kind of conversation. So again, we welcome you here, and we look forward to your comments. So do we have someone to start?
I'm Martin Faucher. I spoke at the last board meeting. I have also sent you all an email recently, and I've only received 3 responses back from that particular email, and the one that I sent earlier this school year, I only got a handful back as well. So my question is mostly about policy 651. I spent a lot of time going through and writing the message to you guys. And I got a very direct email back from Mr. Ferris saying it absolutely will not be repealed because it was approved by an overwhelming majority. However, I thought I presented some more new information and that maybe the board would like to reconsider. But then I didn't get any other substantial email back. I got 2 others that basically just said thank you and we appreciate your thoughts and we will take them under consideration. But then I got nothing else. One board member in particular here tonight, Lynn, told me that she did not get responses from the previous board member for her seat. And so I was disappointed not to get a second email back from you. So that was unfortunate. And in my mind, it seemed confusing that Mr. Ferris could just make a blanket statement saying that it absolutely will not be repealed. He did not say he spoke for the rest of the board. I don't know if that is the case, but he seemed to think that it was absolutely not a possibility. And I think that it's incredibly important for parents to be involved in that conversation. I just, like I said in my email, don't think it is the board's position to insert themselves into when that conversation happens. And Mr. Harris told me that parents are basically not part of the policy making. You told me that policies don't come from the general public?
Yeah, policy ideas don't come from the general public.
Right.
That's correct.
But then I also am aware that you said that I forget which number it is, but it's the one about CRT in schools was brought to your attention to assuage parent concerns. So when is it okay for parents, when are parents listening? Is it just when they agree with you personally, with your personal beliefs? Or is it always? Because it shouldn't be that way. You should be serving all of the community, all of the board, all of the students, not just your own personal beliefs. And I think that it was incredibly disheartening that you specifically called out to the Kelmore School Board and then commended them for bringing morals and values, conservative morals and values into the schools. And that is not your place. Conservative morals and values are for the home. That's great. But they're not, it is not your place to instill your personal beliefs onto everybody else who goes to school here. Does anybody have any comments on that? Not Chris Ferris, because I've heard his comments.
Well, Darcy, I would suggest this, that in fact, policy in and of itself is arrived at by the board through various stakeholders, primarily within the school. The policy ideas themselves do come from a vocal parent and community population that I think the board is also trying to listen to.
But in this case, for policy 651, Mr. Ferris specifically stated no parent requested it. It was specifically because he reached out to another school board and wanted to have something similar in place to promote conservative values.
Again, I think the language of the policy, he might well have reached out to another team of people who might have put in place something similar. But again, the policy comes from listening to our constituents. And our constituents have asked repeatedly for increased parental opportunities and opportunities to weigh in on the involvement with their children.
And they should be.
Yes.
Yes, but it is not the role of a school board to make that ruling. You guys aren't a governing body for all of Wisconsin. You are just here for the Arrowhead students, and you do not have the right to dictate when parents speak to their children about this. How is that your responsibility or your role?
In fact, I think, Darcy, that the timing on when the parents are asked to be involved really only arrives out of registration for that child. This year, as the policy is going into place a little late in the game, the intention is that the policy will be in place, that moving forward along with every other facet of the registration process, that form will look to be signed as well. The exception being this year, it was just adopted a little bit later than the process itself for registration.
Okay, and what do you have to say about the fact that it discriminates against the LGBTQ community here?
How does
Personally, I don't know how that is.
Okay, this last meeting you were not here, I asked, would any of you board members be filling out this form to change your pronouns?
say that again?
Would any of the board members fill out the form to change their pronouns?
We would-
Pronouns that we were given at birth.
We would all be filling out the form. We would be requesting our parents to fill out a form that says which names and pronouns will be used.
No, I'm asking if any of you board members think that you would be filling out a form for pronoun changes.
For a child of ours,
No, if it was you, would you be asking for that form to be filled out? If you were the student for some reason, you had to go to your parent, would you ask for that form to be filled out for your pronouns? No, right?
I'm not understanding, I think, the intent of your comment.
I'll answer your question for myself, Darcy. No, I would not.
Okay, thank
Simple
you.
as that.
Thank you, Greg. So who changes their pronouns? One class of people, one demographic, correct? You all must realize this, yes, because you're confused by it, but I think you realize that heterosexuals are not going to be filling out that form to change their pronouns.
But the way I look at this is, I think, different than what line of questioning you're asking. And I look at this more from the fact that if a student is pursuing or wishing to change pronouns, names, whatever he or she may identify as, it's simply that with this policy, the school in no way is going to or can hide that from the parent. The school is not the parent. The teachers are not the parent. The administration, the board is not the parent. The parent is the parent.
The school
So
board is
in
not
the
the
event
parent.
of a minor wanting to change what they identify as, is back to the parent of the minor.
Yes,
And it's
and
as simple as that.
we have very involved parents. And because this was not brought up by any parent, I don't understand the need to have it in place when we have already established the parents were not. You said the constituents asked for more parental engagement or responsibility to be involved. That's fine. They have that all day long. They're their children. They have that right. It is not your place. Like you said, the board is not their parents. You guys are not the parents. The parents should be making that decision for themselves, not the board. So I wholeheartedly disagree with it. I think it's discriminatory. As soon as you brought in pronouns, I think it discriminates against the LGBTQ community specifically. If it was just about nicknames, that would be fine. That would apply to everybody, but it applies specifically to, I would say, Mr. Ferris's conservative and moral values. He is pointing to a certain community of people.
So since you keep calling me out, I'm just gonna reiterate what I've told you in the past. This is not prohibitive in any way. This is about parental rights. This is about the parent's right to know and to raise their child. If you read our Constitution, Amendment 14 to the Constitution
Of the United States?
of the
Okay.
United States
Okay.
talks specifically about parental rights. It's all about parental rights.
Okay. And when have you guys considered that when you go to the library in this state that you can't find out what your children have read at the library after the age of 16? Those are also parental rights, and there are different age ranges. It's not just all 18 years old. So I think that you should take that under consideration. You are putting your teachers in such a difficult position. They're trying to honor their kids. They're trying to have a transparent relationship with their parents. And you guys are inserting yourselves into a personal conversation that belongs between families, the student and their parents. And I think that you should really look at this policy again, because parental rights do change at different age ranges, depending on what you're talking about. So it's not a straight 18 years old across the board. Did anybody consider that when they looked at this policy? Is anybody aware of that?
A child is a minor under the parent's care until they are 18 years of age, and then they have different rights under the law.
Yes, but again, if you wanted to find out what your child was reading in the library, you can't do that after they're
It's
16.
not about what they're reading in the
The
library.
library isn't our purview.
Right,
This is.
but it could be here. You could be having somebody check out books here, but I do think that you really should look at that.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
So, hello, I'm Brian Gonzalez. I'm a senior at Arrowhead. I was just, wanting to get some clarification on, wait, she's not here. Oh, it's very unfortunate. I think that's really all I came up here for, was to get some clarification. Well, I guess if she's not here, if any of you hold her same beliefs. She was talking about this signage policy that Waukesha had enacted, and she said that she believes that you guys should consider it. And this goes for like banning symbols in the classroom. And I was wondering if any of you guys like shared that belief that we should consider it as a school board.
Give an example of what signage you're talking about.
I think the example she mentioned was like banning flags in the classroom, and that's the extent that she went to, I believe.
I can't speak for Amy. I don't know exactly what it is you're referring to.
I can speak for policy. If you go on to our policy agenda for upcoming meetings, you can see all the different agenda items that we're looking at discussing. That's not one of them at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
John Norcross, Cornwall. I do want to follow up on that because we know, community members in Captain Moraine are dealing with very bad policy focused on pride flags and preferred pronouns. This is policy interpretation. They learned that 2 board members here had inquired with the school board there about that policy, about banning pride flags and restricting preferred pronouns. And that's where the comments about the amazing win for morals and values came out. And so there was an interest in that specific policy around pride flags and banning preferred pronouns for teachers. And so I think that would be worthy of some response as to what is the interest in that Catamarian policy? And what are the morals and values that are being upheld by prohibiting pride flags and preferred pronouns?
I wasn't a part of that
Yeah.
discussion with Kettle Moraine, but just me personally, speaking for myself only, I think there's 2 flags that should be in the school. That's the United States flag and the state of Wisconsin flag. These are the only 2.
I don't know what happens at the multi-UN, but okay, I understand that. Sorry.
Yeah, in terms of me, I mean, I wasn't part of the emails, but in terms of, I know you were saying like like if it's the flags or symbols of things in the classroom, my personal opinion is I don't have a problem with it as long as it's done in good taste,
Right.
where it's not like, you know, there's 7 different things. I mean, I don't, you know, if there's a pump pride flag there or a symbol of someone with a coffee mug of flag, that I have no problem with that. As long as, you know, it's not, you know, plastered, you know, I mean, everyone has their beliefs. I had a teacher that, you know, he was Italian. He had his Italian flag on there. I didn't see, you know, there was nothing there. It was who he was and, you know, accepted that. And I know you said about signatures.
It was, I think it was email signatures that prohibited from using preferred pronouns in emails.
And I know there's not a policy there. I mean, personally, in my job, a lot of people use them. And I don't feel there's an agenda that they put out to me, you know, and it's something that they do and I'm good with it. And I know I'm with adults. I ask my children the same thing. I'm like, hey, do you know, if someone has a pronoun there, they don't feel anything of it. So that's my.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, I was not either a part of those communications with Kettle Moraine, evidently. Just kind of off the top of my head, I haven't thought about this a whole lot, but I would tend to agree with 2 members that the possible exception that, you know, in a German language classroom, you'd want to have a German language flag. I mean, that's normal, right? If you were in a Spanish classroom, you might want to have various flags of Spanish-speaking countries. Beyond that, I don't know. Please don't hold me to this strict interpretation here. I haven't thought it through real well, but it seems to me that if someone wants to ban pride flags, then don't tread on me flags will be next. And you know, they have to pretty much ban every other flag. So if we're going to ever, I hope we don't, I guess, enter into this conversation, but we have to go into it with eyes full open, because when we start banning one thing, you're going to ban the other things too.
Thank you.
I was part of that email correspondence. And in large part, I reached out to Kettle Moraine to better understand their process. And that was clear in my email. I wanted to understand what they had done there, how they reached the decision that they've made, and what could I learn from them. With regards to banners and flags, I can speak to where Member Hammer is in wanting to propose a policy around that. But I would share with you that I'm very much also in agreement with Tim. I think to be able to restrict things to things that represent our country, and perhaps where, like Craig is suggesting, in foreign language classes, that there's representation of those countries where the language is being learned. That seems certainly prudent. So that's where I stand.
The morals and values that are upheld by banning pride flags and pronouns, Chris?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, John. I appreciate your constant, editorials and your comments here. It really helps me to stay grounded in knowing what I stand for. When you're speaking out against it, I realize, okay, I think I'm in the right place. So that helps me stay grounded. I do appreciate that. I don't appreciate your editorials. I don't appreciate your publishing personal names and emails in newspapers. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, John.
Thank you.
Oh, John, I would offer an additional opportunity for conversation. If we could maybe chat sometime, I would offer that. So to that end, may I have your cell number? I'll give you a call.
Sure. 508 667 3103
I'm sorry?
3103.
I'm glad I have your permission to take that down and to have that entered into the public forum. Perhaps in the future, through your journalistic talent, you might consider consulting with the private people about their private information before it is publicly disclosed in the public forum. Thank you.
Got it. Good.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Martin. I'm cold, but it's not contagious. Mr. Benecker,
Yes,
would you say that the teacher friend of yours who showed his Italian flag, like on a mug or whatever in his room, wanted to share that with people because he was born that way? Maybe?
it was my high school.
Right, so.
Yeah.
You could understand where other people would want to share their flags, all right? I think by way of discussion and give and take, that pride flags, if they're in a classroom, even a small one or a mug or whatever, on the end of a pencil or a pen, sends a message to the LGBTQ kids that they're welcome in that room, that they're safe in that room, and no one's gonna mess with them in that room. They don't have it all over the school. I think that would be the purpose in a teacher having something like that in there, to kind of send the message, not I'm gonna indoctrinate you into this lifestyle. It's to send the message that you can come in here and participate in my class just like anybody else, and I'm not gonna, you're not gonna get messed with, if you will. You're safe here. I think that's what's behind that. That's my thinking. I do have a question about the policy committee meeting discussion about a particular movie, The Sea Inside, right?
Correct.
And it's an option for advanced Spanish class. I know my daughter watched it. And there was a complaint or a claim made that it promotes adultery and euthanasia. Is there anything else that it promotes?
Atheism, and suicide, yeah.
Yeah. So I watched it. I spent $1.99 and watched it twice. Award, it was won an Academy Award. Great movie. Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
watched it.
It's a movie about this one man's struggle over the period of 28.7 years to live and then end his life. It doesn't take euthanasia lightly. And then I started thinking, is this the road we're going down? Is that the next step that this board's going to take? Because this library is full of books that you might want to take a look at. Like, well, there was adultery in the movie we watched, right? Not a lot, but a little bit, right? Have you read The Great Gatsby? Because I am telling you that Jay Gatsby had feelings for Daisy Buchanan. Are you going to take that book out of this library? And Of Mice and Men. Spoiler alert, if anyone wants to turn the sound down on the recording. George kills Lenny in the end in a loving act of mercy. Are you going to take that out of here? Are you going to not teach Of Mice and Men? What about Shakespeare? Pretty much all of Shakespeare has a little bit of everything in it. To be or not to be. You're going to take Hamlet out of here? What, Romeo and Juliet, suicide, all over the place, especially at the end. Spoiler alert. And forget about Chaucer, but I don't know if they teach that here, do they? You should read that. It is crazy. When we were here like 2 months ago, I think, when we were all going over the 651 policy, when everybody got up here and spoke, and you all had your minds made up, an English teacher got up and read that poem that ended, and then they came for me. And I think, I can't speak to her motives, but I believe her motive in reading that poem was to get you guys to listen and to think about the actions that you take when you make these inroads on all these different areas in this school. I don't think she meant for it to be a roadmap for you. I think she meant for you to think about what you're doing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mine is not about policy 651. The last time I was here at community conversation, there was someone from the tennis team here, and she had asked the board member about what they could do to help raise money for a new tennis facility. And at some point, somebody in the conversation said something about making Arrowhead more of a community resource for everybody in the community, so that hopefully when it comes down to referendums, things like that, that we would get people to hopefully vote yes for those referendums to get that funding passed. I emailed that person, I think I knew her name, I'm not sure. I looked up stuff on the website and I think I found the right person. But I sent it to her when I moved to Wisconsin initially. There was some sort of welcome committee in the Heartland area that is in the whole like Lake Country area, and they actually go out and visit newcomers to the area. So I thought maybe you guys could somehow, I know that the board said we didn't really have like a PR person to be able to do that. So I think they kind of give it back to the tennis lady. But I was thinking maybe you guys could reach out to them. Maybe they could incorporate, you give away free passes to the pool or something to new families and stuff. But if you're looking to build a rapport with the community about how Arrowhead can be a resource for them, even if they don't have kids going here currently, I just thought I would bring that up. I think on the Village of Heartland Chamber, the Village of Heartland Chamber of Commerce website, her name, I think it's Deb something or other, but I thought I'd bring that to your attention because maybe that would be helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have just a few minutes. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Danielle, I'm a parent in the district. I have a quote that I tend to defer to these days, especially with elections and people that have different opinions. It says, before you argue with someone, ask yourself, is that person even mentally mature enough to grasp the concept of a different perspective? Because if they're not, there is absolutely no point. So I just, for everyone, no matter what their opinion is, keep that in mind before you engage in conversations with people, because sometimes, depending on who you're engaging with, regardless of what you say, you're not changing their opinion, and going around in circles with people just is exhausting, and it's exhausting for everyone else to hear. And it's hard for people that, when other people have different opinions, to remember that as adults. I was going to say one thing on policy 651, because I feel like you guys have heard everything that everyone feels about everything. We've had student speakers, staff speakers, mental health professionals, parents, everyone. And it did seem like in that meeting, when it was decided ultimately that regardless of what was said, that the mind was made up that this was going to go through, regardless of whether you had concrete evidence that something awful was going to happen as a result. That's my own opinion. I could be wrong. I've listened to all the board meetings. I've attempted to verse myself on how that feels. And while I disagree with it, you guys did ultimately pass the policy, and it is what it is, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be repealed. I would very strongly plead with you to add into it, if at all possible, that you can go ahead with the policy, except in the case of student safety. Not every student's family is a safe space. Yes, as parents, we have the ultimate say in what happens with our kids, We like to think that all parents have their students' best interests at heart. That is just not the case. Otherwise, kids wouldn't be abused, kids wouldn't be beaten, kids wouldn't be murdered, disowned. Not all parents have their kids' best interests at heart. And some kids come to school being their true authentic self, because if they go home and do that, their safety is in danger. So I just plead with you that before you call parents and say your son or daughter is changing their pronouns and referring to themselves in this manner, discuss with the student fully why their parents aren't aware. And if it is a safety concern, defer to the school psychologists we have here, who are highly intelligent and very educated and experts in their field, whether that is the right thing to do or not before something awful would happen. That's all. That's it.
Thank you. No, thank you for your comments.
Can I say something about that one? So just so you're aware, maybe there's a little misunderstanding with regards to the policy itself. The school would not in any way call parents to out a kid. That would have to be a mutual agreement between the child and the school. So that's,
would
there's,
not happen if the students said that they weren't staying at home.
that they would not, then they would not call.
If the student isn't safe at home, the school will take action to mitigate that risk, right?
Yeah, Chris's clarifying point is correct. So that was taken out of the policy after
Yep,
the
that's not in-
August policy.
From a teaching perspective, the program.
Okay, this concludes the public dialogue meeting, and we're gonna move right into our board meeting for the evening. Again, please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Roll call. We are down 2 individuals this evening. Both had let me know that they would